bevo.com.
It's been said that one of the key ways to outperform the competition is actually to simply outthink them. Certainly one of the cheapest ways of doing it. So is that the reason why, out of all the sectors of society, business is one of the ones that has embraced your ideas the most?
When I wrote my first book, which is not about business at all, the business sector were the first to be interested in thinking. And that has been my experience. Business sector is more interested in thinking than any other sector of society. Because in business, there's a bottom line, there's a real test. You can prove you're right in an argument, be bankrupt next week. There's an actual reality test. In other areas like politics, it's enough just to persuade people that you're right, and that's all you need to do. You don't really need to think very much. So it upsets a lot of people when I say that business is more interested in thinking than any other sector of society. But it's true.
Okay, and do you think that CEOs are spending enough time thinking about thinking?
The answer is no. I remember talking to a major bank, and from what they said, they probably spent 1 day a year on what I might call creative thinking. All the rest was administrative, operational stuff. So the answer is no. People do not spend enough time deliberately on creative thinking, possibilities, opportunities, and so on. They do not, definitely do not.
And do you think the internet has had a detrimental effect to thinking?
Well, probably yes. What happens, for instance, with youngsters, you give them computers and access and internet, and they start to believe that you don't need to think, you just search for the answer. And also there's the danger with the internet that you learn what everyone else is doing, and you say, if everyone else is doing, it must be okay. Rather like the credit crunch and the toxic mortgage assets. Everyone else is doing it, so it must be all right.
There's been a lot of people who have benefited from your creative thinking workshops. So could I just be a little bit cheeky and just ask for you to give us the sort of 2 or 3 minutes on the fundamentals of getting good creative thinking within the organization?
The key point is that for 2,400 years, we've done very little about thinking, since what I call the GG3, the Greek Gang of Three, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Even worse than that, at the Renaissance, when Greek thinking came to Europe, people running schools, universities, thinking were church people. They didn't need creativity, they didn't need design, they didn't need perceptual thinking. All they needed was truth, logic, and argument to prove heretics wrong. And that became the core of education, leaving out creativity, design, and so on and so on. So the habits of thinking are very much concerned with judgment, not enough with design. How do we design the way forward? And design means using what we have to deliver the values we want. Almost totally absent from education at school or university. And so executives and chief executives were brought up on that. They're very good at it. And when they get to chief executive role, they're still using it. But the other aspects, creativity, design, perceptual thinking, very key, which are not developed. So there's a need to deliberately make an effort to say we're going to spend 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, maybe 1 day a month, really sitting down and trying to generate new ideas. The other danger, which is growing and which is huge, people start to believe that information is enough. So they put all their information into their computer analyzes it, that sets their strategy, makes their decisions. Very, very dangerous. And I've seen that happen with major corporations worldwide. Because unless you can develop new ways of looking at the data, then you're trapped in the old concept. And the computer will only apply your old concepts.
There'll be some people thinking that, yes, actually, this is an area of weakness for us. We need to improve our creative thinking in our organization. But how does a company go about actually practically doing that?
Well, there's 2 sides. Well, 3 sides. One is to take creativity seriously and to realize it's a skill which can be acquired and developed. The other is to get some training for your people in it. And the third is to devote some time and some targets, saying, okay, here's some time, and we want new ideas in this area, in this area, and this area. Well, those 3 things are important. But people tend to think, oh, creative is just a magic gift, and we'll try and employ creative people, and nowadays, now and then they'll have a crazy idea, and we'll listen to them, and that's enough.
Do you think with the abundance in business information that there is, that there could be a problem in that we'll have information overload and it will actually stifle an executive's ability to have clear creative thinking?
The danger is in our logic culture, we don't have an expression which says excellent but not enough. And it's rather like in a motor car, the rear left wheel may be excellent, nothing wrong with it at all, but it's not enough. So our existing thinking is excellent. No way am I saying it's bad, but it's not enough. So people who've risen in their career and so on through excellence in existing thinking, information analysis, problem solving, logic, when they get to a senior position where it is necessary for them to do some additional thinking, their whole background and skill is in other thinking. Logic, development, information analysis. It's not their fault, but that's the way it is.
What about forced idea generation? For example, I've got a friend of mine that takes his team of 10 people, management team of 10 people, into the London Eye every month and gives them an impossible objective or goal or whatever. And each of them, left brain thinkers and right brain thinkers, have got to come up with at least 10 ideas before they can get off the London Eye. And if they don't, they've got to keep on going on it and around it and around it until they do. Is that type of pressurized thinking the right way of getting great ideas?
The deliberateness of it, yes, is excellent. In other words, time for being creative, certain targets, and what I suggest to organizations, what I call a creative hit list, which could be on your intranet, on the bulletin board. We need creative ideas in these areas, not only problem areas. That's a huge point, because our whole idea is thinking is for problem solving. Not true. You may look at something which is excellent and say, that's excellent, but maybe we can change it. 1970, I was doing some work for Shell Oil, and I said, when you drill an oil well, you drill it straight down. I said, that's excellent, but why not drill it horizontally at a certain level? Nowadays, almost every oil well is drilled like that, because you get between 3 and 6 times as much oil, because you're going through the oil-bearing stratum, not just dipping through it. In fact, Statoil in Norway has one well going 10 kilometers horizontally. But for 80 years, everyone was very happy, very satisfied, you just drill straight down. And many excellent ideas need challenging, saying, yes, that's excellent, but maybe there are other ways, better ways.
That's interesting, because you're right. A lot of the thinking goes on, lateral thinking goes on in problems, and everyone says, are you a good problem solver, as opposed
No,
to...
problem solving is only one part. You can look at things which are not problems at all and say, yes, we do it this way, but maybe there's another way to do it. Yes.
So
I mean, it's rather like I wrote a book on simplicity some years ago, and I said, when you leave the United Kingdom, why do you need passport control? If you catch someone who's overstayed his or her visa, you arrest them, you haul them back to court, you spend a lot of money, then you deport them. If they're on their way out, just say goodbye. And 3 months later, they abolished passport control. Now, I can't prove it's someone read my book, but chronologically, that's what happened.
So it's a great point. So it's not just talking about creative thinking for problem solving, but also using creative thinking to enhance things that are already working.
It depends what you mean by, you can have a brilliant idea, you can develop it further, develop full potential in that idea. That's one way of going beyond it. The other, of course, is changing the idea. Both have a value, yes. And when I'm talking about creative, I'm not saying other sorts of thinking are not valid. They are. Market analysis and so on is perfectly valid. But this is additional. It's rather like when you're driving a car, you may have 3 forward gears and someone comes along and says, okay, we're going to give you a reverse gear. And you say, well, that's very useful. When I'm stuck in a situation, I can use it.